There we go. Hello again. Today's video is going to be about the Torah, or Pentateuch, the first 5 books of the Bible. The first book of the Bible is the book of Genesis. It is the first book of the Old Testament and serves as the foundation for the rest of the Bible. It covers a wide range of stories and events that shaped the early history of humanity. Here's a summary of the key themes and narratives found in Genesis. First, we have creation. Genesis begins with the account of the creation of the world. In 6 days, God brings forth light, separates the sky and the earth, creates the plants and the animals, and finally forms man and woman in His image. God rests on the 7th day, establishing the concept of the Sabbath. Adam and Eve. The story of Adam and Eve follows the first human couple in the Garden of Eden. They are given dominion over creation, but are forbidden to eat from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. Tempted by the serpent, Eve eats the forbidden fruit and shares it with Adam, resulting in their expulsion from paradise. Cain and Abel. Adam and Eve's sons, Cain and Abel, bring offerings to God. Out of jealousy, Cain kills Abel, and God punishes Cain by making him a wanderer. This story highlights the consequences of sin and the importance of righteousness. Noah's Ark. As humanity becomes increasingly corrupt, God decides to destroy the earth with a great flood. Noah, a righteous man, is instructed to build an ark and gather pairs of every animal. Noah and his family, along with the animals, survive the flood and repopulate the earth. The Tower of Babel. The people of the earth unite to build a tower that reaches the heavens, intending to make a name for themselves. God, however, confuses their languages, causing them to scatter across the earth. The Tower of Babel story explains the diversity of languages and the dispersion of humanity. Abraham. Genesis focuses on the story of Abraham, a faithful man chosen by God to be the father of a great nation. God promises Abraham that his descendants will be numerous, and they will inherit the land of Canaan. Abraham's faith is tested through various trials, including the willingness to sacrifice his son, Isaac, which is a controversial subject in Christianity, but that does not negate the fact that it happened, or rather that he was told to sacrifice his son Isaac, and then God stopped him. Isaac, Jacob, and Joseph. The book follows the lineage of Abraham through his sons Isaac and grandson Jacob. Jacob, also known as Israel, you might recognize the name, has 12 sons, one of whom is Joseph. Joseph is sold into slavery by his jealous brothers, but eventually rises to prominence in Egypt. Through divine providence, Joseph saves his family during a severe famine and reunites with them. The book of Genesis lays the groundwork for the themes of God's creation, human sinfulness, faithfulness, and divine promises. It sets the stage for the subsequent books of the Old Testament, which further explore the history and relationship between God and His chosen people, the Israelites. And that was the book of Genesis. Our next book is going to be the book of Exodus. Now you might wonder why I'm pausing so often, and that's because I'm on a website looking these up. Yes, I know, it's not the same as me actually giving my thoughts on this, but you get much better material out of this than my thoughts. Trust me. The book of Exodus is the second book of the Old Testament and continues the narrative of the Israelites' journey from slavery in Egypt to the wilderness and their eventual establishment as a nation. Here is a summary of the key events and themes found in Exodus. Oppression in Egypt. Exodus begins by describing the significant increase in the population of the Israelites in Egypt and their subsequent enslavement under a new pharaoh who feared the growing numbers. The Israelites endure harsh bondage and oppression. Birth and early life of Moses. In the midst of the Israelites' suffering, Moses is born. He is hidden by his mother and later adopted by Pharaoh's daughter. As an adult, Moses kills an Egyptian taskmaster who is mistreating an Israelite and flees to the land of Midian. Call of Moses. While tending sheep in Midian, Moses encounters God through a burning bush. God reveals himself as Yahweh and commissions Moses to return to Egypt as his chosen instrument to deliver the Israelites from slavery. Plagues of Egypt. Moses confronts Pharaoh and demands the release of the Israelites. However, Pharaoh refuses, prompting God to send a series of 10 plagues upon Egypt, including turning the Nile into blood, infestations of frogs, gnats, flies, the death of livestock, boils, hailstorms, locusts, darkness, and finally, the death of the firstborn. Another controversial topic, which, again, does not affect the fact that it happened. Passover and Exodus. In preparation for the final plague, God institutes the Passover feast, instructing the Israelites to mark their doorposts with the blood of a lamb. The angel of death passes over the homes with the blood, sparing the firstborn. Pharaoh finally relents and allows the Israelites to leave Egypt. Crossing the Red Sea. As the Israelites depart, Pharaoh has a change of heart and pursues them with his army. God miraculously parts the Red Sea, allowing the Israelites to cross on dry land. While the Egyptians follow, the waters close, drowning them. Wilderness wanderings. The Israelites enter the wilderness, and God leads them with a pillar of cloud by day and a pillar of fire by night. They receive manna and water miraculously, and Moses ascends Mount Sinai to receive the 10 Commandments and other laws from God. The Tabernacle and the Covenant. God instructs the Israelites to build the tabernacle, a portable sanctuary where his presence will dwell among them. They construct it according to God's specifications, and Moses consecrates, or makes holy, or separates, the tabernacle. God establishes a covenant with the Israelites, promising to be their God and guide if they obey his commandments. The book of Exodus highlights themes of liberation, faithfulness, divine intervention, and the establishment of the Mosaic covenant. It lays the foundation for the subsequent books of the Old Testament, which continue the story of the Israelites' journey to the Promised Land and their relationship with God. Next, we're going to talk about the book of Leviticus. And again, this is taking a little while. Please be patient. The book of Leviticus is the third book of the Old Testament and focuses on the laws and regulations given by God to the Israelites. It primarily deals with matters of worship, ritual purity, and ethical conduct. Here's a summary of the key themes and content found in Leviticus. First, the sacrificial system. Leviticus provides detailed instructions for various types of offerings and sacrifices that the Israelites were to offer to God. These include burnt offerings, grain offerings, peace offerings, sin offerings, and guilt offerings. The book outlines the procedures for presenting these offerings and the roles of the priests in administering them. Ritual purity. Leviticus emphasizes the importance of ritual purity and holiness. It provides guidelines on how to maintain cleanliness and avoid impurity, particularly in relation to issues such as skin diseases, bodily discharges, and dietary restrictions. The book highlights the significance of separating the holy from the profane. The Day of Atonement. Leviticus describes the rituals and observances of the Day of Atonement, known in Hebrew as Yom Kippur, which was the most solemn day in the Israelite calendar. On this day, the high priest would enter the Holy of Holies and offer sacrifices to atone for the sins of the people. It represents the annual cleansing and forgiveness of the nation's sins. Code of Holiness. Leviticus contains a section also known as the Holiness Code, which outlines ethical and moral laws that guide the behavior of the Israelites. These laws cover various aspects of life, including relationships, justice, sexual ethics, and social responsibility. The overarching theme is the call to live a holy and righteous life in obedience to God's commandments. Laws regarding priests. Leviticus provides specific regulations concerning the priests, including their consecration, or setting apart for service, duties, and restrictions. It highlights the importance of their role as intermediaries between God and the people, ensuring the proper administration of the sacrificial system and the maintenance of purity within the religious community. Festivals and sabbatical years. The book also includes instructions regarding the observance of religious festivals such as Passover, the Feast of Weeks or Pentecost, and the Feast of Tabernacles. It also addresses the Sabbath rest and commandment to observe a sabbatical year every 7 years, during which the land is to be left fallow and debts are to be released. Leviticus serves as a guidebook for the Israelites' worship, ritual practices, and ethical conduct, emphasizing the importance of holiness and obedience to God's commandments. While it contains detailed instructions that may seem distant to modern readers, it provides insight into the religious and cultural life of ancient Israel and lays the foundation for the religious practices that continued throughout the Old Testament. And that is about the book of Leviticus. Next is going to be the book of Numbers. When you get as big as I am, you tend to get a little phlegm in your throat. All right, let's take a look at the book of Numbers. The book of Numbers, the fourth book of the Old Testament, continues the narrative of the Israelites' journey from Mount Sinai to the borders of the Promised Land. It derives its name from the 2 censuses conducted in the book, which were used to count and organize the Israelites' population. Here is a summary of the key themes and content found in Numbers. The census and organization. The book begins with a census of the Israelite tribes, recording the number of men eligible for military service. The tribes are assigned specific positions and responsibilities in the camp around the tabernacle, reflecting God's order and organization. Journey through the wilderness. Numbers describes the Israelites' journey through the wilderness as they move from one location to another under God's guidance. It details the challenges they face, including complaints about food and water, rebellion against Moses' leadership, and encounters with hostile nations. Kind of like hostile nations are attacking Israel today, and Israel is standing up for itself. Laws and regulations. Numbers contains various laws and regulations given by God to govern the Israelite community. These include rules for offerings, instructions for the Levites and priests, guidelines for purity and cleanliness, laws concerning vows and oaths, and the establishment of cities of refuge. The spies and the consequences. Moses sends 12 spies to explore the land of Canaan, the Promised Land. However, the majority of the spies bring back a negative report, causing the Israelites to doubt God's promise and leading to 40 years of wandering in the wilderness as a consequence of their lack of faith. Rebellion and consequences. The book records several instances of rebellion against God's and Moses' leadership. The most significant rebellion is led by Korah, who challenges the authority of Moses and Aaron. As a result, God brings judgment upon the rebels, demonstrating his support for Moses and the priesthood. Balaam's prophecies. The story of Balaam, a non-Israelite prophet, is recounted in Numbers. Balak, the king of Moab, hires Balaam to curse the Israelites. However, God intervenes, and Balaam ends up blessing the Israelites instead, delivering prophecies of their future victories. And I might add, a prophecy about the star that was in the sky when Christ was born. Preparations for the Promised Land. Toward the end of the book, preparations are made for the Israelites to enter the Promised Land. New laws are given, including guidelines for the distribution of the land, inheritance laws, regulation for the division of spoils during warfare, and instructions for the future conquest of Canaan. Numbers portrays the challenges and tests faced by the Israelites during their journey in the wilderness, highlighting both their faithfulness and their failures. The book emphasizes the importance of obedience, trust in God's promises, and the consequences of disobedience. It sets the stage for the subsequent books, which continue the story of the Israelites entering into the Promised Land and their establishment as a nation. Now you might notice that a lot of these books, by the way, this is the end of the book of Numbers, You might notice that a lot of these books set the stage for future books, and that is by design. God is revealing his plan, his purpose, his will, his way, line by line, precept by precept, here a little and there a little. Now we have the book of Deuteronomy, the fifth book and final book of the Torah, or Pentateuch, which is presented as a series of speeches by Moses to the Israelites on the plains of Moab just before they enter the Promised Land. The book's name, Deuteronomy, means second law, as Moses reiterates and expands upon the laws and commandments previously given. Here is a summary of the key themes and content found in Deuteronomy. Review of Israel's history. Moses begins by reviewing the Israelites' journey from Egypt to their current location, reminding them of God's faithfulness, their rebellion and disobedience, and the consequences they faced in the wilderness. The purpose is to emphasize the importance of learning from the past and not repeating their mistakes. Restating the law. Moses repeats the law and commandments given earlier, including the Ten Commandments, and provides additional explanations and applications. He emphasizes the importance of wholehearted love for God, strict adherence to his commandments, and the necessity of teaching them to future generations. Call for covenant faithfulness. Moses calls upon the Israelites to remain faithful to the covenant they made with God at Mount Sinai. He warns them against idolatry and intermarriage with the surrounding nations, urging them to worship God alone and avoid the corrupting influences of foreign gods. Promises and warnings. Moses highlights the blessings that will come upon the Israelites if they obey God's commandments and remain faithful to him. Conversely, he warns of the severe consequences they will face if they turn away from God and violate the covenant, including exile and dispersion among other nations. Appointment of leaders and laws. Moses appoints Joshua as his successor and provides instructions for the future leaders of Israel. He establishes the cities of refuge, guidelines for warfare, and regulations concerning kingship, priests, and prophets. Blessings and curses. Moses outlines the blessings that will come upon the Israelites if they faithfully obey God's commandments, and the curses that will befall them if they disobey. This serves as a reminder of the importance of obedience and serves as a warning against straying from the path of righteousness. Renewal of the covenant. Finally, Moses calls for a renewal of the covenant between God and the Israelites. He gathers the people, reads the book of the law before them, and leads them in a solemn covenant ceremony, reaffirming their commitment to follow God's commands. Deuteronomy serves as a summary and reminder of the covenant relationship between God and the Israelites. It emphasizes the importance of loyalty, faithfulness, and obedience to God's laws as they prepare to enter the Promised Land. The book concludes with Moses' final words and his ascent to Mount Nebo, where he views the land that God had promised to their ancestors. Spoiler alert. Moses dies, and most scholars believe that the last line or so, that the last passage of the book was written by Joshua or by one of the priests. So yeah, Moses died. I'm not going to spoil how. You'll have to read about that in Numbers. But anyway, this has been a summary of the Torah, or Pentateuch, the first 5 books of the Bible: Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy. And I hope you got something of value out of it. Next time we will be discussing the historical books, and that's going to be a much longer video. I thank you for watching and hope to see you next time. God bless you.